Hey y'all, welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Today we've got some great video for you. I'm Tim, we're MrMaple.com, a mail order business. We ship directly to your door. Go to MrMaple.com, make sure you're shopping with us, we appreciate you.
Hey, I'm Matt, greatly appreciate all you guys tuning in. This is one of our new shows we're going to be airing here on the Mr. Maple Show. We're defining our content a little bit more to make it even more premium for you guys. So this is one of our Gardening 101 episodes. We're going to be talking about today, are Japanese maples low maintenance? And I think this is going to be a great topic. It's something we get asked about a lot. Sometimes getting into Japanese maples can be intimidating for gardeners or even novices that haven't got into it before. And we're going to talk about, are Japanese maples low maintenance and why?
Well, Japanese maples are probably, once they're established, one of the most low maintenance plants you can grow out in your landscape and garden. They're very easy. They require very little care. There's care you can definitely do to them to make them beautiful, make them go faster, but they require very little care once they're established.
For sure.
Young plants, though, may require a little bit of attention when you first plant them.
Now, I'll actually start this out by saying that I find Japanese maples to be one of those plants that the least you do, the better. Sometimes our too much love are what cause things to go wrong. It's overwatering, over-fertilizing, and over-pruning, doing things too quickly, too much. Those are some of the things that cause us to have issues with Japanese maples. People often tell me, well, I'm afraid of this cultivar. I think it's a little weaker, so I've kept it in a pot. Well, it grows easier in the ground often. So 9 times out of 10, we're actually doing a lot of things that are causing that maintenance thing to be a little bit higher than it should be. And if we're letting the plant do what it wants, it's going to be much more lower maintenance.
Many of y'all may have seen the photo of my parents' yard. They've got over 300 Japanese maples in the ground at Mr. Maple Gardens on Maplewood Gardens, and it's amazing. But the thing is it requires very little care. I mean, my mom's not out there attending every single Japanese maple all the time, and she's out there, enjoying it with her grandkids. And that's really what you want in a landscape, is something you can go out there and enjoy instead of something you're out there working and trying to focus on all the time. Japanese maples, they're very, very easy once you get them established. A young plant, you're gonna need to water it whenever you plant it, let it dry out. Make sure you plant it where it's not planted too deeply, just about the same level it was in the pot. And if you put that plant in the ground and it gets established, you've got a carefree plant that can really do well for you and really make a beautiful tree in the landscape. And if you do a mass planting of Japanese maples, you can get a really low maintenance garden.
Yeah, we actually water very little or none. Now, we are blessed to be in an area that gets a good rainfall amount. In higher heat areas, you are going to have to maintain a steady amount of water to compensate for lack of water. We haven't watered very much in our garden that Tim's talking about there at Maplewood Gardens, much at all. There was a year we had a particular drought. We had some wildfires. We were watering the garden that year. But other than that, I can't think of a single year where we had to maintain constant watering for established plants. Japanese maples are very drought resistant. They're very durable. They're very durable even if they drop leaves. So one of the first lines of defense if they dry out too quickly is the drop leaf. If you're seeing healthy buds there late summer, that's going to be places that re-leaf the next following season. That's next year's fresh foliage. So it's not something that requires a lot, and they are very easy to turn back around once something goes wrong. Now, one of the main questions we get is about pruning. Now, Japanese maples do not require to be pruned. You can certainly grow Japanese maples and not prune them at all. One of our favorite gardens, NJ Acer, Ed likes to see the natural forms of maples. He very rarely prunes in his garden, and he has some amazing plants. Now, we have a full video on pruning Japanese maples. You certainly can prune out the branches you don't like. We recommend doing that in mid to late March. If you want to talk about pruning, definitely check out our video on how to prune a Japanese maple. We're going to be doing a little bit more detailed one of that this next March with a lace leaf and some other options to give you some different style content there. But we do recommend doing your pruning in mid to late March. So that's one of the levels of maintenance you can do, but it's certainly not required, and it's often done too soon. I recommend pruning Japanese maples once they've been established in the ground 3 to 4 years. So 1 gallons, I don't tend to shape those much at all. Let them go out, let them form their natural canopy, let them start to get some of that majestic natural beauty. And then long term, you can start to make longer adjustments for that plant. But let it get established at first. Don't rush to prune.
And Matt's exactly right. I mean, many arboretums you go and visit, they don't prune their Japanese maples. They let them form their natural shapes. And what you're seeing in those arboretums are often what they've the shape that they've made naturally. And Japanese maples make a beautiful shape naturally. But like any artist, if you want to do more maintenance to your plant, you can definitely prune and shape to mold it to whatever vision you have. Japanese maples are extremely easy to grow. Now, fertilizing, you can fertilize a Japanese maple if you want. You don't have to, but when you fertilize a Japanese maple, it does make it grow quicker.
Yeah, mid to late March is, again, typically the time of the year we start our fertilization here at the nursery. I talk about it a lot, but you only want to fertilize in times of the year when you can prune, and you only want to prune in times of the year you can fertilize. So those two things go hand in hand. We cut off all of our fertilizing at May. So we fertilize in early spring, and then we cut it off after May so the trees harden off. Be conscious with any of your maintenance or any of the things you're doing to change your Japanese maple that you're making it cold hardy, that you're preparing it for winter, that you're letting it shut down thoroughly, and that's going to give you, a better tree long term. Now, a lot of times people prepare too much for winter. So oftentimes we're doing too much maintenance on our Japanese maples going into winter. I'll have people that do things like wrap a Japanese maple in a burlap sack for the entire winter. It's not going to make it. They'll do things like put a tarp over a Japanese maple for an entire winter. Now, this is where, a little bit too much care, a little bit too much love is causing more issues than needed. So be conscious that the maintenance we're doing may not be required. Japanese maples work great in the ground zones 5 through 9. You want to protect them during heavy changes. So part of the maintenance for Japanese maple, especially here in Western North Carolina, is preparing for late frost and extreme changes and making sure that your Japanese maple shuts down completely going into winter. Now, if you're doing those things and you want to cover it with a burlap sack, especially in Chicago in zone 5, when you're getting a polar vortex, of course that's a great idea. We definitely encourage you always to protect your trees during extreme changes, especially young juvenile plants. But you don't want to leave that on year round. That's not going to be something that helps the plant long term. It's going to be a source for unwanted moisture, bacteria against the branching. You're going to want to remove anything like that and not have that going on all year long. That's one little bit of the maintenance things that often people recommend, but might not be a good idea.
If your goal is to put a tree in the ground, let it turn into a beautiful tree all by itself once it's established, and not have to put a lot of care into it and really be able to enjoy the foliage, I don't think of a plant that does that better than a Japanese maple. You've got plenty of other trees out there that are flowering. Their foliage looks bad during the summer. You've got to do a lot to try to keep that foliage looking really, really good on some trees. On a Japanese maple, once it's established, if you're in zones 5 through 9 and you follow our top 5 tips for growing Japanese maples, we've got a whole video on that. Basically includes making sure your plant's not too boggy when you plant it, make sure you've planted it level, not mulched too deep, and making sure that your Japanese maple isn't over fertilized. Your plant is gonna thrive and do well in those spots. And with 1,000 varieties of Japanese maples, we've got a Japanese maple for every spot in your garden.
Yeah, it's really simple. One of the things I often stress when I'm doing gardening talks with folks, sometimes the Japanese maple that's been put out beside the driveway and just let do its own thing, that one's spectacular. And the one that's gotten babied a little bit and maybe a little bit too much love, it's got too much water, that one might be having a little bit more issues. I've had people say, well, I don't know what's going wrong with my Japanese maple. I water it for an hour every single day. I just care for it so much. I've fertilized it, I've pruned it. Well, you got to back off. You're doing too much maintenance. So a little bit of that maintenance, could be avoided and let that tree form its natural beauty. If you follow these basic steps for how to plant them and how to go forward, that maintenance is going to be very, very minimal in the ground. They're very easy plants to grow. One thing I love about Japanese maples are they're very forgiving. I love conifers. I grow conifers here, but once a conifer starts to go downhill, it's very hard to turn that around. Japanese maples bounce back right away. I mean, when something went wrong. It dropped the leaf. It said, hey man, I'm getting shocked here. Something's wrong. It's give you a really good indicator. And there's so many steps to find out what's going on there and turn that around before things go south. So you can always email us photos of your Japanese maples from us and say, hey, what's going on here? Let us know early on and we'll be like, hey guys, that's nothing to worry about. That's just a little bit of, this or that, or we can tell you detailed instructions into how to get it going right.
Now, one thing to keep in mind too, if you're new to gardening and new with Japanese maples, on our YouTube page, we have all the answers you really need to growing Japanese maples. We're always putting out new content.
With videos.
So we've got videos on watering Japanese maples. We've got videos on pruning Japanese maples. We've got videos on fertilizing Japanese maples.
Right.
We've got photos on videos on when your Japanese maple dries out, what to do next. And so we've got videos on a lot of these topics. But the great thing is that Japanese maples are so simple and easy to grow that you typically don't really have to do anything, and your level of maintenance is required on how fast you want the plant to grow and what type of shape you want this plant to have.
So to answer the question, yes, Japanese maples are extremely low maintenance. There are several key things to look out for. Japanese maples have very non-invasive roots. We have a video on that as well. So you want to not put plants around them that are invasive in the root system and give them too much root competition. But overall, if you're following these basic steps we're providing, there's very little long-term maintenance. And especially in droughts, you want to water, you want to protect from extreme changes and colds, and be conscious of each season and what's going on with your tree. But if you're staying ahead of that, there's not a lot of maintenance to do. It doesn't require pruning. Now, we go over a whole pruning video, but if you see branches you don't like, don't be afraid to take them out. That's one thing about Japanese maples people are afraid of, but it's very low maintenance. It doesn't require you to prune the tree. People will come to me and they'll say, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never pruned this tree. I know it has to be pruned. What do I do? And I'm like, you got a gorgeous plant. And oftentimes they're trying to take a cultivar that isn't shaped like what they want. Someone's husband or wife has said, I want that thing to be a weeping tree. And they're trying to recreate something that isn't going to happen there. And so by picking the cultivar you want right away, picking a weeping form or a larger upright form, that'll go a long way toward not having to do some maintenance that might not necessarily be working for you anyway.
Yeah, you're 1000% right. Most of the reason why people have maintenance on Japanese maples is they've chosen a really fast growing Japanese maple for a small spot. And if you choose a smaller Japanese maple for that spot, you're not going to have the maintenance that you will of selecting a fast growing selection. And if you go on MrMaple.com, you can go and read about their 10-year sizes and 15-year sizes and try to plan your landscape accordingly.
Now, one thing I will reiterate that's important to check every year, I have seen it change for people, is sometimes things can affect the water flow in your yard. So Japanese maples, we reiterate this like over and over on our channel, but they don't like boggy or wet feet. So one little key piece of maintenance that you do want to be conscious of, and it's not really maintenance, but you want to be conscious of the water flow not changing toward your tree. So if a tree, say something changes in your neighbor's yard, and now you're getting more runoff to that one spot and it's getting boggy or wet, or you put in a drain and now that area is staying a little damper than it was, that might not be ideal for a Japanese maple, so it may require you to move it when it's out of leaf. But really simple stuff here, guys. It's one of those things that the least you do, the better. And Japanese maples that are overly maintained, those are the ones that typically look the least desirable. And the trees that are let to grow into their natural beauty, let do their own thing, and kind of backed off of a little bit, those are some of the easiest plants to grow. I'll have people come to me that are first-time gardeners, and they'll say, gosh, I just don't have a green thumb. I don't think I can grow a Japanese maple. We're like, hey, it's not difficult. Like literally, you find the right location, you plant it correctly, and let it do its thing, right?
And Japanese maples are super easy to grow. Matt mentioned this earlier. One thing to keep in mind is if you're growing a Japanese maple in a container, you are putting more maintenance on yourself, because that plant in a container does require you to take care of it, giving it water and giving it the nutrients that it needs to keep thriving. And then when it outgrows that bowl you've put it in, that container, you either have to put it in the ground, root prune it, or put it in a larger container. So you're putting maintenance on yourself if you are growing in a container. Just keep that in mind. That does make them a little more,
sure.
You have to put a lot more care into growing containers than you do on one in the ground.
I think we'll do a whole part too on the maintenance required to grow Japanese maples in containers.
I think that'd be a great one.
Not hard, they're easy, very simple too. They make great container plants, but it does require a few additional steps. Now this video is mostly for in-ground. In-ground Japanese maples are probably one of the simplest plants you can grow, and we'll deep dive into that topic as well.
And if your goal is to have a garden where you want you to just go out and enjoy it, there's nothing better than a Japanese maple that's going to give you beauty in the spring, summer, and the fall, and be carefree once it's established.
Yeah, there are very few things that bug these. Like we have breakdowns on all this stuff too. You can look at our powdery mildew video. We talk about insects on our channel. We talk about all the different things that can go wrong. And most of those things can be avoided if you've got good drainage on your Japanese maple. So we kind of get into the crux of it. But if you're doing those first key steps right, extremely low maintenance. Hey guys, we greatly appreciate you tuning in to this. We hope you like this new Gardening Answers, Gardening 101 style content. These videos are going to be airing every Friday. So if you're watching this live, let us know in the comments section, even after the premiere, what your favorite topic would be for us to cover next. I would love to hear from you guys on topics you would like to see here in our Gardening 101. Doesn't have to be maple related. We're going to do some other content as well about some of the other plants we're growing, but a lot of the content is going to be maple centric here.
Thanks for watching, y'all. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this video with your gardening friends. We mentioned we're MrMaple.com, a mail order business in Western North Carolina. Please shop with us. We also add 10 new trees every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And if you go to MrMaple.com, you can sign up for our weekly email so you know the full listing of everything that's getting listed.
Hey, thanks so much. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.